Welcome back to the Late Night Island Show, where we always discuss the most woke topics. Today, we're going to be talking about cultural appropriation, something very interesting and relatively new. And right now, we have a guest star, Jada Wahaba, who's been studying it for a while. Take it away, Jada!
So here I am to discuss cultural appropriation. So basically, I've been studying a lot about cultural appropriation in society, in universities and places like those, especially the music industry and the industry in general. So basically, just to give a working definition of cultural appropriation, as I'm sure you know and many others know, cultural appropriation is when basically a dominant culture borrows aspects of a less dominant culture in order to basically like get success, recognition, and things like this. So basically, this is a huge problem in society because it creates basically a negative, inaccurate image of a minority culture, and this can be very damaging and hurtful to those cultures.
So, for later to the set tonight, we're going to be focusing on three main minorities. That's going to be peoples of African descent, peoples of Asian descent, and Aboriginal peoples.
So basically, we can just get started with our first point, which is cultural appropriation of people of Asian descent. So basically, we can see this with both Chinese people and Japanese people, but we can just focus on the example for the Chinese. So basically, we saw cultural appropriation at the Met Gala in 2015. Did you watch the Met Gala? Did you see any pictures?
I told you I studied the most recent woke events. Of course I watched it.
Oh, it was a really just controversial event. So basically, I'll tell you the problem with it. So basically, the theme was basically called China Through the Looking Glass. And basically, what they tried to do was represent what they think China is and what they really perceive the culture to be. Did you see any news about that? Did you get any?
I didn't really enjoy the Met Gala that year because I found it very offensive.
I know it was offensive, especially Sarah Jessica Parker. So basically, she showed up in a Chinese headdress. Well, basically her imitation of it. That was created by an Irish hat maker, which was really controversial and weird to me because she was trying to represent Chinese culture by using an Irish hat maker. That doesn't really make sense because she's not really getting the opinion or the really like rich knowledge of the culture that the Chinese designer would have. Instead, she's just getting an interpretation of it from a person who doesn't even know about the culture. So basically, to analyze this event, the Met Gala was very problematic because it basically promoted China to be a culture which worships dragons and loves fans and stuff like this, when this is really superficial and these items don't represent what China really is as a culture. It just represents Western stereotypes of the culture. And this is really problematic because a lot of people aren't educated and really don't know what China is as a culture and their rich culture and their rich history, which is really just very stereotypical and it's very hurtful.
Western, they just assume it's all dragons, colors,
and
fireworks.
All they use is stereotypes.
Just the festivities, the food.
Yeah.
Nothing else. No rich culture. Digging in deep.
They don't dig in deep, and that's really just a problem because China isn't a huge culture that's represented in America, and because of this event, a lot of people are going to have ideas that don't really match up with what China really is. And this can become very problematic because at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Chinese people didn't want to come to America or didn't feel comfortable because there are a lot of stereotypes that exist here, and it's really just very negative and creates an unrealistic expectation for them to live up to, and it's just not okay. And many artists even went dressed in clothing from designers who weren't even Chinese. So it was said that only Rihanna's dress was actually from a Chinese designer, which is really ironic because how can you represent a culture effectively when you don't even include their opinions, thoughts, observations, anything like that? They're just basically trying to recreate things that they've seen in the media. And this was very problematic, and it was just a disgrace to Chinese culture.
I found that really interesting and insightful, the way you really showcased that China and its cultures have more to offer than what Western societies have to showcase in the industry, in things such as like the Met Gala 2015 version.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 2016 version was a lot better. There wasn't as much.
Yeah, I
cultural
found that much better.
appropriation. Yeah.
Didn't have any cultural appropriation.
Well, it did have some, but I mean, it was
Not
definitely.
no, it didn't have as much compared to
I
2015.
yeah, I agree.
But anyway, okay, back to my topic now. Okay, so I'm just gonna talk to you what I dabbled in a bit. Okay, so I just looked into what's it called again? Aboriginals. Aboriginal, their symbol, their clothing, and all the things like that. So basically, what I'm seeing is they're being culturally appropriated in certain ways. Like for one instance, on the cover of Elle magazine, Pharrell was wearing an Indian headdress to showcase as if it was fashion, as if it was just fashion, with so much more than that.
Oh, I saw that magazine, and he received a lot of backlash, and it was very controversial because it was definitely like almost disrespectful because the headdress, like Aboriginal people already go through so much, and to have their symbols being appropriated and used as simple fashion is just not right.
As well as Chinese cultures and Asian cultures, Aboriginal is very rich in culture and it's been oppressed for so many times in the past. So for it to be just simply used as fashion, I found that very disrespectful. And that's all I have to say about that.
Especially since people sometimes they don't even know about the culture and they don't have the background knowledge and they don't really understand the struggles that people went through to just be using sacred symbols like that. It's definitely it is appropriation and it definitely should be stopped because it just creates a negative image and it's just not correct.
And it's just simply using it as fashion to make it look better on another culture and then oppress them in a way
Yeah.
by making it look down on them.
People often like look at Aboriginal clothing and they think that it's really like not. I don't know how to say it.
They don't like
it's-
find it symbolic. They don't
yeah,
find it like
they make fun of it basically, and when it's on another person in Hollywood, it's the newest fashion and it's an amazing new trend, and I just think that's kind of hypocritical to just take symbols that belong to another culture and just basically give it to another one and give them all the credit and all recognition for that. It's just not okay.
yeah, don't buy that magazine. So our last topic for tonight is basically how hairstyles of African descent are being culturally appropriated.
So basically, we can see many examples of this, especially in the new culture on Instagram and places like that. There's a lot of appropriation, especially of the African hairstyles. And a lot of people don't really know where they're getting these techniques and the inspiration for these styles from, and it's definitely hurtful to the originators because they're not receiving credit for it. Can you think of any examples of the appropriation you've seen of these styles?
Of course I can. Kylie Jenner and her box braids, Kim Kardashian, the whole family, even Katy Perry in her music video, This Is How We Do, she had the braids, she had the grills, the golden grills on her teeth, everything.
Yeah, I can definitely think of Kim Kardashian because you can see when she wore her hair in two braids, basically they called it boxer braids, which doesn't really exist, and they said that this was her new style that she created when she really borrowed inspiration from this from other people. And I feel like that's really hurtful because she's basically profiting off of it and she's getting a lot of recognition for starting a new trend that she really doesn't know anything about. Do you have anything to say about that? I think that that's
I find that
really
very
just.
offensive,
I know it
actually.
is.
The fact that she's taking that style and she's making it look good for herself and making it look bad for other people across the world. Because when people of African descent do that with their hair, they're seen as dirty or other things like that, and they're oppressed. But when Kim Kardashian does that, she's praised by millions in the world.
Yeah, it's often seen as unprofessional or maybe unkept, or people just really don't like these styles. But when people who are not African do these styles, it basically is seen as an amazing new trend, and it's just so iconic of them to do. However, they really don't understand the roots of these styles. Many people do not know that many of these braiding techniques did originate from slavery, and they are definitely coined to African culture, and that's where they came from, and they're not given the inspiration, and they're not given basically the credit that they deserve for what they've done to give back to society.
Another celebrity I've seen do a hairstyle, not really of African descent, but from Jamaicans, is Justin Bieber and his dreadlocks. That's actually taking a hairstyle from the Rastafarian religion in Jamaica, and he is using it to seem cool and using it as fashion trends when it's actually a very serious religion in Jamaica.
I know. I don't think he even knows that it really comes from religion because many people don't understand that dreadlocks are actually a part of a religion. They just think that it's just style and it's just worn by people of African and Jamaican descent. However, it really is something deeper, and because they don't understand what this is, they really are misusing it and creating a negative image. And I think that this can be really hurtful because people who actually practice this culture and actually know what this is talking about, they see this and they feel like it's almost disrespectful to them because those people don't live the same realities and they don't understand what the actual struggle it is for people who do have dreads, because a lot of them are judged. I'm sure you know about that, because a lot of people who do have dreads are seen as unprofessional and stuff like that, and it's just really just not a good environment for those
Lesser
people
chance
to see.
of getting a job, everything like that. They're discriminated on the road. They're assumed to be buying drugs or selling drugs. They're assumed to be smelling bad. Thank you so much for coming, Jada. You were a great help tonight. And I really like how you used your expertise in this field of cultural appropriation, something that not many people know about, so we can educate them tonight. I really want to thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love to just educate people and let them all know that we really do need to change as a society and stop appropriating other cultures. So basically, just to end off this show, cultural appropriation is a huge issue that should not be overlooked in society. It's definitely important, and it's just essential to realize that you can't just borrow aspects of a less dominant culture, because you're basically stereotyping this culture, and it's just not okay to use things that you don't know about just for fashion purposes or the purposes to fit in or stuff like that, because it's just a negative thing to be using for a culture.
Yeah, in conclusion, it may be difficult to wrap your head around this because it's fairly new, but it is very negative and it has negative effects on the world, and it hurts other cultures more than it helps you. Next week, we'll be back with Donald Trump, and we'll see what he really did last week with that Mexican food. Stay woke.